Chosen one, something in you has shifted, and the world can feel it before you even open your mouth. The air changes when you walk into a room now. The atmosphere rearranges itself to make space for who you've become. You no longer shrink, you no longer apologize for existing, and that quiet storm of power around you has everyone turning their heads in disbelief. The energy you carry now commands attention without demanding it. You've stepped into a frequency that hums with divine authority, and whether people admit it or not, they can sense that heaven has moved within you. The old version of you, the one who lived to please, who bent and broke herself just to fit into places you were never meant to be, is gone. You've shed that version like old skin, and what's emerging is the truest expression of your soul. You used to chase validation like it was oxygen. You used to water yourself down to be digestible. You used to silence your truth to keep the peace with people who were never at peace with themselves. But now you remember who you are. You've awakened from the hypnosis of needing approval. You've walked out of the prison of too nice and too accommodating, and stepped into the boundless freedom of authenticity. You used to walk into rooms hoping to be accepted. Now rooms are blessed just because you entered them. You used to wonder if you were enough. Now you understand that you were more than enough. You were simply surrounded by people who preferred you weak. There's an unmistakable glow around you now, a sacred confidence that comes not from arrogance but from alignment. It's not loud, but it's powerful. It's not performative, but it's undeniable. It's the peace that comes when you no longer need to prove your worth, when you finally remember that your spirit was chosen long before this world ever had an opinion about you. This shift in you didn't happen overnight. It came from 1,000 quiet moments when your heart broke, but your soul whispered, "Keep going." It came from every betrayal that pushed you closer to God. Every disappointment that burned away the illusion of who you thought you were supposed to be. Every rejection that redirected you back to your purpose. You didn't just wake up confident one day, you were forged in fire. You were refined in isolation. You were remade through the tears you cried when no one was watching. And now, that quiet resilience has become your crown. When people look at you now, they can't quite figure out what changed. You still look like you, but there's something different in your eyes. A depth that wasn't there before. A steadiness that unnerves the unsteady. You move differently, with intention. You speak with authority. You don't rush to fill the silence anymore because silence has become your ally. You've learned that power doesn't always roar, it sometimes just breathes. The same people who used to overlook you now can't stop watching. The ones who once took you for granted now stutter in your presence, unsure of how to approach you. Because something in you has evolved beyond their understanding. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated things just to keep the peace. You've outgrown conversations that drain your energy and connections that require you to betray your own spirit. You've outgrown pretending to be less than who you are so others won't feel intimidated. Or you've outgrown shrinking your dreams to make insecure people comfortable. You've outgrown apologizing for your light. And that growth, it's radiant. It's undeniable. It's sacred. You've become the living embodiment of divine evolution. Chosen one, can you feel it? The quiet strength humming beneath your skin. The way your heartbeat syncs with destiny itself now. This is not a temporary season. This is the unveiling of who you were always meant to be. The fog of self-doubt has lifted. The fear of being misunderstood has dissolved. The weight of other people's opinions no longer anchors you to smallness. You've risen above the noise and stepped into the clarity of divine truth. You are no longer reacting, you are creating. You are no longer surviving, you are thriving. And what's truly miraculous is that this transformation didn't require anyone's permission. You didn't need their approval to rise. You didn't need their applause to evolve. You simply decided to honor yourself, and in that decision, the universe shifted in your favor. The same energy that created galaxies is now pulsing through your spirit, reminding you that you were never ordinary. You were always chosen. Chosen to break generational patterns. Chosen to heal ancestral wounds. Chosen to stand as a living testament that you can't keep divine light hidden forever. You used to live waiting for the right time, the right sign, the right support, but you've realized that you are the sign. The call was coming from within you all along. You've stopped waiting for someone to hand you permission to shine, and you've crowned yourself with courage. You've stopped asking for understanding from people committed to misunderstanding you. You've stopped explaining your spirit to those who can't comprehend your frequency. Now your silence speaks volumes. Your stillness carries power. Your very existence has become your message.
Every step you take now echoes through the spiritual realm. Every word you speak carries the weight of divine purpose. Every time you choose peace over chaos, love over fear, truth over comfort, you shift timelines. You are not just walking through life anymore, you are orchestrating it with divine precision. Your energy announces your arrival before your voice ever does. You radiate the kind of confidence that can't be taught because it's not about ego, it's about remembering. Remembering that you were never created to beg for what's already yours. Look at how far you've come. There was a time when you would have done anything just to be accepted. Now, acceptance feels small compared to alignment. There was a time when you mistook attention for love. Now you recognize that real love doesn't demand your silence, it celebrates your truth. There was a time when you thought boundaries made you selfish. Now you understand that boundaries are how you honor the divine within you. You've learned to love yourself without guilt, to walk away without explanation, to stand tall without apology. People can feel that something's different now because your energy no longer asks for permission, it simply exists in truth. You don't chase, you attract. You don't explain, you embody. You don't seek validation, you radiate assurance. That's the beauty of remembering who you are. Everything you once thought you needed from others, you've found within yourself. You've realized that peace is not something you earn, it's something you protect. And now, you protect it with the ferocity of someone who's lost it before and refuses to lose it again. Every time you chose silence over arguing, you were building strength. Every time you chose peace over proving your point, you were learning discipline. Every time you walked away instead of reacting, you were mastering yourself.
And that mastery has made you magnetic. You don't beg for respect anymore, you embody it. You don't demand love, you become it. You don't ask the world to see your worth, you carry it like armor. The universe responds to this version of you differently. Doors that were once closed are now opening effortlessly. Opportunities that used to evade you now seek you out. The energy you once spent chasing validation is now creating manifestation. You've stepped into divine flow, and it shows. People feel the difference. Some are drawn to your light. Others are repelled by it. But either way, your presence is a mirror, revealing truth in everyone you encounter. You no longer adjust your brightness to protect their shadows. You shine because it's what you were made to do. This is what happens when a chosen one finally remembers. The world doesn't recognize you, because you no longer belong to the version of it that used to cage you. You're free now, free from the need to please, free from the fear of rejection, free from the illusion that humility means dimming yourself. True humility is knowing your power and still choosing peace. True grace is walking away from what dishonors your soul without bitterness, without noise, without explanation. That's the level of mastery you've reached. So yes, chosen one, something in you has shifted, and everyone feels it. You've outgrown smallness. You've evolved beyond the versions of yourself that were never meant to survive this level of awakening. You walk with divine authority now. You move like someone guided by angels. You speak with the clarity of truth. You live like someone who has nothing to prove and everything to protect. You've become the embodiment of peace after war, light after darkness, power after pain.
And make no mistake, this version of you is permanent. There's no going back to who you were, because that version no longer exists. You have crossed thresholds you can't uncross. You have touched realms of truth you can't unsee. You have unlocked power you can't unfeel. You are a new creation, reborn not through comfort but through courage. You've reclaimed the throne within yourself, and the kingdom of your spirit now bows to no one but the divine. So hold your head high. Walk like the chosen being you are. Speak truth even when your voice trembles. Shine light even when others prefer darkness. Because this new attitude, it looks good on you. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's not pride, it's purpose. It's not rebellion, it's remembrance. You've finally remembered who you are, a chosen one, crafted in divine fire, walking in your true power. And nothing, no one, no force in this universe can take that away from you again. You've gone from pushover to powerhouse, and people don't know how to handle it. The same ones who used to walk over your boundaries now find themselves walking on eggshells around you. They don't understand it, but they feel it. Something in your energy shifted, something in your spirit awakened, and it disrupted their control. They used to feed on your compliance, on your silence, on your willingness to keep the peace at the expense of your own. But that version of you no longer exists. You've graduated from the school of suffering, and your diploma is self-respect. That glow everyone sees? That radiance they whisper about? That's what happens when peace becomes your new normal. That's what happens when boundaries become your new form of love.
You used to think that being kind meant tolerating mistreatment. You used to confuse love with self-sacrifice, thinking that if you just gave more, tried harder, proved yourself enough, people would finally see your worth. But now you know better. You've learned that real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. Real love doesn't drain you, it fills you. Real kindness doesn't require you to self-destruct to keep someone else comfortable. And now that you've learned that truth, your entire energy has recalibrated. You're no longer vibrating on the frequency of desperation. You've shifted into the frequency of self-worth. You've learned the sacred language of no. You've learned that no is not rude, it's responsible. That boundaries aren't barriers, they're protection. They're how you honor the divine within you. You no longer say yes out of guilt. You no longer say yes just to avoid conflict. You no longer say yes when your spirit screams no. You've realized that peace is not found in pleasing others, it's found in staying true to yourself. And that realization has made you unstoppable. There was a time when your softness was mistaken for weakness. People mistook your empathy for naivety. They thought your silence meant submission. But what they didn't know is that even while you were quiet, you were observing. Even while you were kind, you were learning. You were studying patterns, energies, intentions. You were taking notes from the divine on how to move differently. You weren't weak, you were wise. And now, the world is seeing what happens when a quiet soul finds its voice. Now you speak differently. You move differently. You don't rush to defend yourself anymore because you understand that truth doesn't need an audience. You don't explain your worth anymore because worth is something that speaks for itself. You've reclaimed your time, your energy, your attention, and that reclamation has changed your entire reality.
People feel it when they're in your presence. There's a weight to your silence now, a command in your calm, an authority in your peace. You no longer need to shout to be heard. Your energy does the talking for you. They used to call you too sensitive, too emotional, too much. Now they call you different. What they really mean is they can't manipulate you anymore. They can't guilt you into giving what you no longer owe. They can't convince you that love means enduring pain. You've upgraded your emotional operating system. What used to trigger you now teaches you. What used to drain you now disciplines you. You've stopped explaining your boundaries and started enforcing them, and the shockwaves of that decision are still reverberating through your life. People are unsettled because your new peace exposes their inner chaos. Your boundaries highlight their lack of self-control. Your silence reveals their noise. Your stillness confronts their avoidance. They can't project onto you anymore because your energy no longer absorbs other people's emotions like a sponge. You've stopped rescuing people from the consequences of their own behavior, and that's terrifying to those who depended on your compliance. You've broken a spiritual contract, the unspoken agreement that you'd always put others first. And now that you're honoring yourself, they're scrambling to rewrite their roles in your story. You used to walk into rooms trying to prove your worth. Now your worth precedes you. You used to chase validation like it was a finish line. Now validation comes to you naturally because you no longer need it. That's the paradox. The moment you stop needing approval, the world starts offering it. But you're no longer impressed by empty praise. You don't crave applause. You crave peace. And peace has become your ultimate power move. Your energy has boundaries now.
Your time has value. Your words have weight. You no longer pour into everyone, because you've learned that not everyone deserves access to your overflow. You've learned to discern between those who value your presence and those who just use your light to brighten their own darkness. You've learned that you are not obligated to heal everyone you meet. You can love people and still let them be accountable for their own healing. You can care deeply and still walk away when your spirit is being suffocated. That's real strength, the kind that doesn't roar but still shakes the earth. They don't know how to deal with this version of you because it's no longer programmable. You're no longer running on people-pleasing patterns. You've deleted guilt as a motivator. You've uninstalled self-doubt. You've removed the virus of codependency. You've replaced it all with self-trust. You trust your gut now. You trust your no. You trust your silence. You trust that walking away doesn't make you cruel. It makes you clear. You trust that peace is worth more than proximity to people who drain you. And that self-trust has made you magnetic to everything aligned with your highest self. You've realized that you can love people without betraying yourself. You can be compassionate without being consumed. You can be kind without being careless with your own energy. You can forgive without returning to the same situations that broke you. You've learned that forgiveness is freedom, not a permission slip for repeated disrespect. You've learned that love with boundaries is still love. In fact, it's the purest kind. And that understanding has transformed your relationships. You no longer attract chaos because chaos can't survive in your calm. You no longer entertain drama because your energy is too valuable for petty distractions. You've become intentional, with your time, your words, your company, your presence.
There was a time when your light attracted moths, people drawn to your warmth but never willing to honor its source. They came to feed, to take, to bask, but never to reciprocate. Now your light attracts mirrors, souls who reflect your growth, who pour back into you, who match your frequency. You're no longer surrounded by people who drain your spirit, you're surrounded by those who water it. You've leveled up your circle by leveling up your self-worth. And that's why the glow is different now. It's not makeup. It's not image. It's alignment. It's inner healing made visible. People whisper, "You've changed." And you smile, because they're right. You've changed from reactive to reflective. From anxious to anchored. From seeking to knowing. You've changed from being easy to access to being sacredly selective. You've changed from chasing love to embodying it. You've changed from constantly explaining yourself to simply being yourself. They say you're not the same person anymore, and you agree. You're not supposed to be. You evolved. You transcended. You ascended. You've stopped performing for people who never clapped for you. You've stopped auditioning for roles in other people's stories. You've stopped trying to convince others to see your value. You've realized that people who can't recognize your worth were never meant to hold space in your destiny. You've stopped fighting for rooms where your presence isn't respected. Now you build your own tables, your own spaces, your own peace. You've stopped waiting to be chosen because you've remembered, you already are. Your glow now is not just beauty, it's evidence. Evidence that healing is real. Evidence that boundaries build confidence. Evidence that self-love is a revolution. You wear your peace like a crown and your discernment like armor. You don't chase closure, you create it. You don't beg for understanding, you embody it. You don't wait for opportunities, you attract them by being aligned.
That's why people are drawn to you now, even the ones who don't understand why. They're witnessing what divine alignment looks like in human form. They see the calm in your eyes and it unsettles them because it means they can't control your emotions anymore. They hear the steadiness in your voice and it irritates their chaos because they can no longer trigger you. They see you choosing solitude over fake company, and it exposes their own dependency. You've become a mirror that forces people to confront their own lack of growth. And though they may resist it, some will eventually be inspired by it, because your transformation isn't just personal, it's prophetic. You're not just changing for yourself, you're modeling what evolution looks like for others. And the truth is, you're not even angry anymore. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You've released resentment because you understand that holding on to pain only delays your purpose. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's the presence of clarity. And clarity has become your superpower. You see people's intentions clearly now. You see patterns you used to ignore. You see your own growth, your own resilience, your own light. You've stepped into the role you were always meant to play, the unapologetic, empowered, peaceful warrior of your own destiny. That's why they don't know how to handle you. You've become unpredictable to those who once controlled you. You've stopped explaining and started evolving. You've stopped fixing and started flourishing. You've stopped proving and started being.
And that shift, that sacred, irreversible shift, that's your power. The old you would have apologized for this glow. The old you would have dimmed your light so others could feel tall. But the new you? You walk in divine authority, grounded, graceful, unbothered. You no longer try to make others feel big by making yourself small. You've realized that it's not your job to shrink for anyone, it's their job to expand. Chosen one, this is your era of embodiment. The era where peace is your flex. Boundaries are your language. Purpose is your posture. And self-respect is your glow. You no longer chase what's not aligned. You no longer beg for what's not divine. You're no longer waiting for permission to be powerful, you simply are. And that energy? It's unshakable. It's holy. It's permanent. You've gone from pushover to powerhouse, and nothing, no one, not even your past, can take that from you again. They can't believe it. The person they used to manipulate now stands tall, grounded, unshaken. You don't flinch anymore. You don't explain yourself. You don't apologize for existing. And that terrifies them. They look at you now, and it's like they're staring at a stranger, someone they no longer recognize, someone they can't read, can't predict, can't control. You've become an enigma, a mystery wrapped in calm power. You no longer dance to their emotional strings. You no longer bend your truth to make them comfortable. You've detached with divine precision, and that shift has shaken the very foundation of those who once fed on your kindness. You've reclaimed your power, and your silence now speaks louder than every word you ever said trying to be understood.
Once they thrived on your explanations. They loved when you over-apologized, when you doubted yourself, when you shrank to fit their version of you. You gave them access to your peace because you believed love required suffering. But not anymore. Now your peace is sacred ground, and entry is by invitation only. They can feel that gate has closed, that the energy that once flowed so freely toward them now flows back into you. You are no longer a source of validation for the broken. You are your own sanctuary now, and that kind of power unsettles those who built their self-worth on draining yours. They talk about you now, whisper your name with confusion and fear, wondering what happened. They'll call you cold, distant, arrogant, different. But deep down, they know the truth. You woke up. You saw through the manipulation, through the guilt trips disguised as care, through the pity wrapped in control. You saw that you were never hard to love, they were just too selfish to love you right. You stopped begging for crumbs and realized you were the whole feast. And when you began to treat yourself like the gift you are, those who benefited from your self-doubt began to choke on their entitlement. You've learned the beauty of sacred distance. You've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. You've discovered that not every connection deserves resurrection, some were meant to be buried. And while they're busy trying to figure out how to pull you back into the old cycle, you've already ascended to a frequency they can't reach. You now move differently, slower, wiser, more intentional. You've stopped reacting, and that silence has become your greatest weapon. You've turned detachment into art.
Your calm unnerves them because it exposes their chaos. Your confidence irritates them because it reminds them of their own insecurity. Your refusal to engage in drama dismantles the entire stage they built to perform on. You've learned the secret most never do, that peace isn't passive, it's power restrained. You are no longer a volcano erupting every time you're provoked. You are a mountain, unmoved, majestic, eternal. They can shout, they can mock, they can twist stories, but you don't chase explanations anymore. You've made peace with being misunderstood. You've realized that divine alignment doesn't require public approval. The truth is, chosen one, your transformation mirrors back to others the parts of themselves they refuse to heal. When they see your glow, they're reminded of their own stagnation. When they see your boundaries, they feel their own lack of self-respect. You've become a mirror, and not everyone can handle their reflection. Some will distance themselves not because you wronged them, but because your light now exposes their shadows. And that's not your burden to carry. You were never meant to dim to make others comfortable in their darkness. You were meant to shine so bright that they either evolve or retreat. So yes, they're terrified, not of you, but of what your existence now represents. You've proven that change is possible. You've proven that you can rise from betrayal, rejection, and heartbreak stronger than ever. You've proven that love doesn't mean tolerance for mistreatment. And now, every boundary you set echoes with divine authority. You've stopped begging to be chosen because you finally realized you were the chosen one all along. Their control depended on your confusion, and the moment clarity came, their grips slipped.
You see through the illusions now. You no longer seek closure from those who caused the chaos. You understand that peace was never something they could give you. It was something you had to claim for yourself. That realization shattered their illusion of superiority. Because now, when they try to provoke you, you don't react, you simply observe. When they gossip, you don't defend, you detach. When they test you, you don't explain, you elevate. You are no longer the same person they could manipulate with guilt or silence with fear. You've tasted freedom, and there's no going back. You've learned that love without respect is manipulation, and attention without intention is distraction. You've learned that energy doesn't lie, When it feels off, it is off. And now you trust your intuition like gospel. You've become fluent in discernment, and that's why your circle got smaller, but your peace got louder. And that's what terrifies them most, not your glow up, not your success, not your peace, but your discernment. You see through masks now. You hear the spirit behind the words. You read the energy before the sentence finishes. You no longer confuse pity with compassion, or attachment with love. You move by revelation, not reaction. You operate from wisdom, not wounds. And that makes you unpredictable, untouchable, unstoppable. They'll try to bait you back into the old cycles with nostalgia, with guilt, with manipulation disguised as kindness. But your spirit no longer resonates with that frequency. What used to trigger you now bores you. What used to hurt you now teaches you. You've outgrown the noise. You've stepped into divine neutrality, where you don't chase, don't beg, don't fight. You simply allow what aligns and release what doesn't. You're no longer fueled by revenge or validation. You're fueled by peace, purpose, and presence.
Let them talk. Let them question. Let them project. Their confusion is confirmation that your healing is real. You've become everything they said you couldn't: strong, wise, peaceful, self-sufficient. You've rewritten your own story without needing their permission. You've become your own closure. You've become the storm they never saw coming and the calm they'll never understand. So yes, they're terrified, chosen one. Because you broke free. You reclaimed your light. You remembered who you are. And once a chosen one remembers, nothing, and no one, can ever control them again. There's electricity in your veins now. That quiet fire in your spirit isn't rage, it's resurrection. You've risen from the ashes of who you used to be, and the glow that radiates from you now isn't man-made, it's divine. You've been through the kind of breaking that only the chosen can survive, the kind that doesn't just test your strength, but forges it. You were stripped down to the bone, emptied of everything that wasn't authentic, until only your truth remained. And now that truth burns like holy fire inside you. It's not anger. It's not revenge. It's rebirth. The energy flowing through you now isn't something the world gave. It's something heaven ignited. You're no longer fueled by fear, but by purpose. No longer motivated by pain, but by power. You've gone from seeking validation to emanating vibration. The same situations that used to drain you now can't even touch you. You've become untouchable, not because you built higher walls, but because your frequency has risen beyond reach. The energy that once leaked from your open wounds now radiates as light from healed scars. Every scar tells a story, and every story releases power. You've tapped into something eternal. Your soul hums with divine current, a rhythm that says, "I'm still here." The world thought it buried you, but it only planted you. And now you've blossomed in places where nothing was supposed to grow. You walk with a quiet thunder. Your steps don't make noise, but they make impact. There's a sacred confidence about you now, the kind that doesn't need to shout. You move like someone who has met both darkness and God and came back carrying revelation. That glow people see? It's not makeup. It's not style. It's not luck. It's the light of someone who finally chose themselves. It's the afterglow of self-respect, the shimmer of someone who walked through the valley and met their own soul there. It's holiness disguised as confidence. The world calls it the glow up, but heaven calls it resurrection. You are living proof that divine timing always redeems what human betrayal tried to destroy. People look at you now and can't understand why you're so calm, why you're so unbothered, why your eyes hold that depth, that mixture of peace and fire. It's because you've learned that power doesn't need to perform. Real strength is quiet.
Real healing doesn't announce itself, it simply changes everything it touches. You've stopped explaining your glow to those who never saw your darkness. You've stopped trying to convince others that you're better. You simply are. And that is what unnerves them, because your very existence now contradicts the version of you they once knew. You used to walk through life dimming your light so no one felt overshadowed. Now you realize that your light isn't competition, it's confirmation.
Confirmation that survival can become sanctification. That pain can be purified into power. You carry divine voltage now. Every word, every glance, every silence crackles with presence. People feel your energy before you even speak. Rooms shift when you enter. The atmosphere bends toward your vibration. That's not ego, that's alignment. Every time you smile now, the universe smiles back. Every time you breathe in peace instead of anxiety, heaven takes note. Because you're finally living as the masterpiece you were always meant to be. The electricity in your veins isn't just energy, it's evidence. Evidence that death couldn't hold you, depression couldn't drown you, betrayal couldn't break you. You've transcended survival and stepped into sovereignty. You're no longer the one who needs saving, you've become the light that guides others home. They say you changed, and they're right. But they'll never comprehend the cost of that change. They'll never know the nights you cried yourself into strength, the prayers you whispered through shaking lips, the moments you almost gave up but didn't. They see the glow but not the grave you rose from. They see the shine but not the shadow that taught you how to guard your peace. And that's okay. The glow wasn't made for their understanding, it was made for your becoming. Now, when people see you, they squint, not because you've done anything to them, but because the light you carry exposes what they refuse to face in themselves. You are a walking reminder that transformation is real. You're proof that God doesn't waste pain. Every heartbreak became a doorway to higher wisdom. Every betrayal refined your discernment. Every loss redirected you toward your destiny. You're glowing from the inside out because you no longer fight what's leaving, you trust what's aligning.
That quiet fire in your spirit? It's not rebellion, it's resurrection energy. It's the sound of your purpose humming again. You've learned to channel your passion into peace, your wounds into wisdom, your loneliness into leadership. You no longer burn out, you burn bright. You no longer chase closure, you create clarity. You no longer live waiting for miracles, you've realized you are one. There's something sacred about how you move now. You no longer rush. You no longer force. You flow. You trust. You attract. You manifest. You've learned that divine timing never fails those who refuse to give up. You've stepped into the realization that every delay was protection, every rejection was redirection, and every ending was an initiation into higher power. You've become the embodiment of divine equilibrium, fire and calm, passion and patience, light and gravity. And yes, your glow is too bright for some to look at, not because it blinds, but because it reflects. When they see you, they see the truth, that healing is possible, that power is real, that faith still works. You are living, breathing proof that the spirit within you is greater than every force that ever tried to break you. You no longer just exist, you radiate. You no longer just survive, you thrive. So walk boldly, chosen one. Let the electricity in your veins remind you that you are not here by accident. You are a walking spark of divine intention. You've been refined, not ruined, resurrected, not replaced. Your energy speaks before your words do, and your light declares, I am here. I have risen. I remember who I am.
Let's hold a funeral for the old you, not in sorrow, but in sacred celebration. The version of you who apologized for existing, who tiptoed around other people's comfort zones, who dimmed their light so no one else would feel small, That version is gone. Buried. Laid to rest in the soil of your own growth. And this burial isn't a tragedy, it's liberation. Because death, for the chosen ones, is never the end, it's always the beginning of something divine. You spent years trying to earn what was already yours: love, respect, belonging. You tried to prove your worth to people who couldn't even see your value. You carried the weight of other people's insecurities as if they were your responsibility. You kept trying to be enough for those who were never satisfied. You smiled through disrespect, stayed quiet in the face of mistreatment, and convinced yourself that peace meant silence. But the truth is, that wasn't peace, that was people-pleasing disguised as harmony. That old version of you lived in fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being abandoned, fear of standing alone. But somewhere along the way, something sacred snapped inside you. Not in anger, but in awakening. You realized you were never meant to beg for the very things that flow freely from the divine. You realized you weren't created to be small so others could feel tall. You realized your softness was not a weakness, it was a gift that had been mishandled. And in that moment, you decided to bury who you used to be, so you could finally meet who you were always meant to become.
So yes, let's hold a funeral. Let's lay to rest the version of you that said yes when your soul screamed no. Let's bury the one who overextended themselves for people who never reciprocated. Let's say goodbye to the you who thought love had to hurt to be real, who believed loyalty meant tolerating abuse, who mistook control for connection. That version of you deserves rest. That version of you fought long and hard just to keep you alive through the storm. But now it's time for peace. Now it's time to honor that self, not by clinging, but by releasing. The casket we lower isn't filled with failure. It's filled with lessons, wisdom, and divine experience. Every tear that old you shed watered the soil of who you've become. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every sleepless night built the foundation for your resurrection. The funeral isn't the end of your story, it's the climax of your evolution. You're not mourning what's lost, you're celebrating what's risen. Look at you now, unrecognizable, radiant, reborn. You no longer walk like someone seeking permission to exist. You walk like someone who knows they belong here. You've stopped explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You've stopped lowering your frequency to meet people who refuse to rise. You've stopped apologizing for outgrowing environments that couldn't hold your expansion. That's not arrogance, that's ascension. You've graduated from the need for approval. You've become fluent in the language of self-respect. This funeral isn't held in a church or a graveyard, it's held in your spirit. The ashes of your old self are scattered in the winds of transformation. Every time you choose peace over chaos, that's a eulogy. Every time you say no without guilt, that's a hymn. Every time you refuse to explain your boundaries, that's a prayer. You are writing the obituary of your past with every act of self-love you perform today.
And while the world might not understand it, heaven celebrates it. The angels rejoice because another chosen one has finally awakened. The divine smiles because you finally realized your worth was never up for negotiation. You've reclaimed your name, your voice, your energy. You've stopped being the background character in your own story and stepped into your rightful role, the main character, the vessel of purpose, the embodiment of divine resilience. You see, the old you had to die for the real you to be born. There was no other way. You couldn't have carried that old weight into your next level. The baggage of guilt, the chains of approval seeking, the burden of false humility, all of it had to be left behind. Death was the doorway. And when you walked through it, you didn't just survive, you resurrected. Now your energy feels different. Your silence speaks volumes. Your presence commands respect without demanding it. You don't chase, you attract. You don't cling, you release. You don't beg for peace, you are peace. The old you wanted to be liked. The new you wants to be aligned. The old you craved connection. The new you cultivates it only where it's mutual. The old you sought external validation. The new you draws power directly from the source. And when people from your past meet you now, they feel it immediately, that something has shifted beyond words. You're no longer accessible to chaos. You're no longer available for half love, half effort, half truths. You've become a mirror reflecting truth so clearly that it unsettles the unhealed. Some will call you distant. Some will call you changed. Some will call you cold. But you'll know the truth, you're healed, whole, and finally home within yourself. So let the funeral bells ring. Let them toll for the version of you that lived in fear. Let them echo for the one who carried burdens that weren't theirs to carry.
Let them sing for the one who gave love where it wasn't honored. Because from those ashes, a sovereign soul has risen. You're not who you were, and that's the point. This is your rebirth moment. The old you has been buried with honor, and the new you wears the crown of transformation. No apologies. No explanations. Just divine alignment. This is not grief, it's glory. This is not an ending, it's emancipation. Rest in power, old self. You served your purpose. You kept the light alive long enough for the flame to become eternal. But now, the chosen one walks free, radiant, powerful, unstoppable. The world doesn't need the old you anymore. The world needs this version, bold, healed, unapologetic, and alive. And that, chosen one, is something truly worth celebrating.
They try to bait you with guilt and manipulation, but you don't bite anymore. You've seen their tactics too many times to fall for them now. You've studied the pattern, decoded the emotional games, and outgrown the version of yourself that felt responsible for other people's comfort. You recognize the manipulation disguised as concern, the subtle guilt trips wrapped in fake affection, the calculated silences meant to pull you back into submission, and you no longer react. You've become a master of emotional detachment, and that, chosen one, is true power. Because let's be clear, emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's not that you stopped caring, it's that you stopped carrying. You realized it's not your job to heal those who refuse to change, to fix people who enjoy being broken, or to explain yourself to minds already made up. You used to bend yourself into knots trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You used to lose sleep over why people treated you the way they did. But now you see it all for what it is, projection. Their inability to love you wasn't your flaw. Their disrespect wasn't your fault. Their guilt trips no longer have a destination, because you stopped buying tickets to their emotional circus. They call you selfish because they no longer benefit from your selflessness. They label you cold because they can't feed off your warmth anymore. They call you changed because the old you served their comfort, and the new you serves your purpose. They can't handle the silence that follows when their manipulation fails. They can't process the stillness in your response when they try to provoke you, expecting the old emotional reaction, the tears, the apologizing, the over-explaining. But now, they get nothing. Just your peace. And peace, to the manipulative, is more terrifying than confrontation.
They say you've become hard, but the truth is, you've simply become healed. Healing gives you discernment. Healing teaches you that empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. Healing whispers, you don't have to attend every emotional battle you're invited to. And so, you stopped showing up to the chaos. You stopped explaining your boundaries to those who benefit from crossing them. You stopped performing emotional CPR on people who play dead when accountability comes knocking. That isn't cruelty. That's wisdom. That's evolution. You've mastered the art of not reacting. When they roll out their old scripts, the gaslighting, the guilt-tripping, the emotional blackmail, you just watch it play out like a rerun you've already seen. You've detached from the need to win arguments, to prove points, to convince people of your truth. You know now that peace is proof enough. You've learned that silence is a language the manipulative cannot speak. And in your silence, they lose their power. See, emotional detachment isn't indifference, it's divine alignment. It's the ability to stand in a storm and not be moved. It's responding with calm when chaos expects your collapse. It's choosing stillness over reaction, reflection over retaliation, truth over turmoil. You no longer feed the energetic parasites who live off your reactions. You've unplugged from their drama completely. They can tug, they can taunt, they can try, but your soul no longer responds. You've risen beyond reach. They don't understand that this new peace cost you something. They don't see the nights you cried yourself into calm, the prayers you whispered asking God to remove your attachment to people who were never meant to go where you're going.
They don't know how much inner war it took to find this outer stillness. Detachment didn't come from bitterness, it came from breakthrough. It's what happens when your healing becomes more important than their opinion. Now when they throw bait, guilt, pity, anger, manipulation, you simply watch it fall flat. You've realized you don't need to explain your boundaries to those who are determined to cross them. You don't need to prove your kindness to those who confuse it for weakness. You've learned that love without respect isn't love, it's dependency. And you refuse to play savior to those who refuse to save themselves. They call you selfish because they can't use you. They call you arrogant because you finally have standards. They call you heartless because you finally grew one strong enough to protect itself. But deep down, they know the truth. They lost access to the version of you they could manipulate. The power they once held evaporated the moment you chose peace over performance. And now, every attempt to control you reveals their own powerlessness. Emotional detachment is your armor now, not to keep love out, but to keep chaos out. You still love deeply, but you do it wisely. You still care, but you care selectively. You still give, but only where it's mutual. You've turned your empathy into discernment, your compassion into clarity, your love into leadership. You don't chase anymore, because you understand that what's meant for you will never require you to betray yourself to keep it. They missed the version of you who overexplained. The one who apologized for having boundaries. The one who second-guessed their own reality because someone else couldn't handle accountability. That version of you kept them comfortable, and now your growth makes them squirm. Because your silence exposes everything their words tried to hide. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your detachment exposes their desperation.
You've become a mirror that forces them to see what they've been avoiding, their own emptiness. So let them talk. Let them call you selfish, distant, changed. Let them create stories that make them feel justified. You don't owe anyone an emotional performance. You owe yourself peace. Because real power isn't loud, it's composed. Real confidence doesn't argue, it simply is. Real freedom is when your mood is no longer at the mercy of someone else's manipulation. You've mastered something sacred, the art of emotional sovereignty. You no longer let people rent space in your mind. You no longer pay attention to energy that drains you. You've reclaimed your power, piece by piece, until peace itself became your power. That's what they can't understand. That detachment doesn't mean you stopped feeling. It means you stopped allowing your feelings to be controlled. You've become the calm in every storm, the stillness that unnerves the chaotic, the grounded force that exposes false power. That's why they can't stand your glow. Because it's powered by control they can't steal, peace they can't shake, and confidence they can't imitate. They'll keep throwing bait. They'll keep testing your boundaries. But you've outgrown their games. And that, chosen one, is the truest form of mastery, the ability to stay peaceful in a world that profits from your reaction. Because you finally understand this. Not everything deserves your energy, not everyone deserves your access, and not every battle deserves your participation. You're no longer playing the role of the martyr. You're walking in your divine authority. You've detached from manipulation and reattached to purpose. You've reclaimed your emotions, your focus, your freedom, and that, chosen one, is what real power feels like.